It's an Italian stamp for episode 19, and a really interesting looking one at that. We can see it's Italian from the bottom of the stamp, Italia, along with the year 1976, and the name of the printer. A fascinating image is displayed on the stamp, very detailed, portraying a beast or dragon in what looks to be a palace or a wealthy city. And let's not ignore the bones and human remains in the foreground of the stamp. Ugh. The name of the artist is on the left side, V. Carpaccio, 1455 to 1526. And there is a postmark, but with not enough detail, other than the symbol of a postal horn, which is an instrument that was used to signal the arrival or departure of a post rider or mail coach, and has become a symbol of several national postal services. The stamp size measures 40 by 30 millimeters, and I know that this is going to bring up a number of interesting topics to discuss. So first of all, what is this image? Well, actually it's half of an image, or a painting really, by Vittore Carpaccio back in 1502. And you can see the other half of the painting came adjoined to the stamp. So two stamps created the full image. And this in philately is known as a se-tenant, where two stamps came from the same sheet but are joined and have very different designs. This is actually very common today, but what makes this one stand out is that it's a continuous image spread over the two stamps. Just like this one from Germany, where a photograph is spread across two stamps. Now the painting is called St. George and the Dragon, and we can see St. George valiantly slaying a dragon with his horse and lance. And we can see a princess praying in the background, and all the remains of the people that the dragon has killed, which is actually quite gruesome. And the city in the background, which is Selene. It's in Libya. Well, it really isn't, because it's imaginary, just like the dragon. So let's talk about dragons. So these imaginary creatures were really believed to have existed by both Eastern and Western cultures. It's like the ultimate fear, a flying snake with teeth. In fact, that's just it. The Eastern cultures came up with a flying serpent that had 4 limbs, 2 wings and 2 legs, whereas the Western cultures during the medieval times came up with a flying lizard with 6 limbs, 4 legs and 2 wings. Oh, of course, it breathed fire. Now, what also helped with the belief of dragons were dinosaur bones. Every now and then a skull or some bones were dug up, and that just validated the stories about them. Dragons have been used in so many stories and myths, most of the time depicted as evil, either terrorizing villages or boats, or protecting some castle with a princess needing to be saved. And most of the stories tell of a protagonist or a hero that has to slay the dragon and rescue the princess. And that brings us to the story that this painting and stamp have captured. St. George was actually a real person who lived at the end of the 3rd century. He was born in Turkey, was a Roman soldier, and he refused an order to denounce his Christian faith. He was then dragged through the streets and beheaded. All of this is true, except any reference of him fighting a dragon and saving a princess. You see, the Pope made him a saint in 494 AD, and stories of St. George spread for hundreds of years. He was associated with the Crusades, where he was seen fighting battles 600 or 700 years after his death, defending the religion. And he was wearing a red cross, which was worn by the Crusaders. Now, this red cross became known as St. George's Cross, and that is what England uses today as its flag, along with the country Georgia. Now, the legend of him killing a dragon is really just symbolic of good versus evil, and has been captured by many artists. There are actually several stamps depicting St. George killing a dragon, and they've primarily been issued by countries throughout Europe. Here's another stamp with a painting of St. George slaying the dragon. This one is from Romania. Actually, my favorites are from Romania. It's this definitive set issued back in 1939. Today, the existence and imagery of dragons owe a great deal to the legend of St. George and the way artists have portrayed the dragon over the years. There are flying, fire-breathing dragons in The Hobbit, Harry Potter, Shrek, and Game of Thrones. Just looking at how St. George and the dragon have been depicted by artists, there is a very interesting statue in New York City called Good Defeats Evil, and it is symbolic for the nuclear disarmament between the Soviet Union and the USA at the end of the Cold War. I really want to go check this out. I'm just going to go for a quick trip. Just a quick trip, I promise. So the United Nations has this incredible statue which is not really accessible to the public because it's behind all these secured gates and walls. But it was given by the former Soviet Union back in 1990 to the United Nations on its 45th anniversary. And it of course depicts St. George slaying a dragon. But what makes the statue so cool is that the dragon itself has been built up of old nuclear missile parts from the United States and from the USSR. Now, even though I cannot access the statue, what I can access is the United Nations Post Office, which issues its own stamps. So I'm going to go get a few stamps and I'll see you back at base. So the United Nations made an agreement with the United States postal authorities to issue their own stamps with US currency, and they've been doing so since 1951. The subjects on the stamps have been messages of peace, the environment, and human rights. And the UN is therefore the only organization in the world that is not a territory or a country that is permitted to issue its own stamps. The UN offices in Geneva and Vienna also issue their own stamps. The rule is, though, that you can only send mail with these stamps from inside the United Nations in their special post boxes, but they go anywhere in the world. Now look at this one. This is a se-tenant with a continuous image like the stamp we pulled from the box. Pretty cool. As always, thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I post a lot of content there as well. See you next time.